Do you lead a creative team? Are you an instructional designer that leads course design meetings? If you are, then this video is specifically for you because it shows us how to create a high performing team by creating rewarded vulnerability. That is the definition of psychological safety, and it is the way to really turn your team, whether it's just within meetings for creating a course or you lead an entire creative team. It is the way to help that team become high performing and allow them to perform, to do their best work. And that is by creating that space of rewarded vulnerability or psychological safety. And we're going to get in right now exactly how to do it. We are going to use the acronym LIVE. Now, this came from Leader Factor. This did not come from Dr. George. This came from Leader Factor. And when I heard this acronym, I thought it was absolutely fantastic because it is a way that we can create that rewarded vulnerability that is the definition of psychological safety. It is a specific pathway that we can take to do this, specific actions that we can take to do this. So here we go. LIVE stands for look, identify, validate, engage. Now let's get into each one of these individually so we can break them down and start building that rewarded vulnerability. The first step is to look. And what does that actually mean? Well, sometimes as a leader, whether you're an instructional designer leading a meeting or you're leading a team, whatever it may be, we can get tunnel vision. We can look too closely at what we're doing, get too involved there. We need to actually take a step back. You can do this on a virtual meeting. You can do this in an in-person meeting where you just take a step back and you look around, get better situational awareness, read the room, if you will, because you're looking for people who are being vulnerable. And what does vulnerability look like in a meeting? Well, it could be somebody that has a contrary opinion to a big idea that's out there. It can be someone who's presenting their best work. It can be someone simply presenting an idea that's not fully baked yet, right? Within that meeting. So there are many ways that people are vulnerable within your team, and we have to create that environment where vulnerability thrives, because once that vulnerability thrives, that's how we take steps to creating that high performing team through psychological safety. Now that you've taken a look around the room, begin to in real time to identify people who are engaged in vulnerable activities, because vulnerability is really a piece of our humanity. It just interacting with other humans is an act of vulnerability. So identify those specific acts. We talked about them in the look section. So we want to in real time identify what they are. Is somebody being contrarian to a popular idea? Is somebody being vulnerable by sharing an idea that's not fully baked? Is somebody just engaging in back and forth conversation or asking a question? Because sometimes asking a question is an act of vulnerability. And I would even argue that most of the time asking a question is an act of vulnerability. So identify those acts in real time. So far, we've created better situational awareness by stepping back, taking a physical movement, whether we're on a virtual meeting or in-person meeting, and looking. And then we identified people are who in situations where people are being vulnerable. Now it's time to validate. And it's super important as a leader to do this real time. Now you might say, well, I'm just a team member. Well, there is no just in that. You are a team member, so it's a responsibility to validate as well. And here's a couple of quick and easy ways as a leader or a team member to validate someone to begin creating that environment of rewarded vulnerability, which is psychological safety. And that's how we create high performing teams. So the first one is, let's say somebody asks a very basic question about something that we're talking about, instead of saying, and we've all probably been there, where there's a comment, kind of a non-authentic response to that. Say, hey, thank you for that question. I appreciate that question. So thank you or I appreciate goes a long way in building that vulnerability. And then authentically, because people can smell when you are not authentic, they know what that smells like and they feel what true authenticity is. So as a leader, you have to engage with your authentic self and say, okay, I appreciate you asking that question, because that is really the crux of the concept here. So we have to be very clear on that. So to get clear on it, let's kind of redefine this, because I imagine there's a few other people that this might help as well. So just engaging with that authentically, or if somebody has a contrary opinion and you're the leader, even if you like this other idea, you say, "Hey, I appreciate you coming in with that alternate concept, alternate idea. How do you think? Tell me more about it, and how do you think it will affect the organization in a better way than what we're currently looking at?" So when you, as a leader, when you engage with curiosity and authenticity, you create that area of rewarded vulnerability. Now, let's say I'm a team member, same two things happen. Somebody asks a very basic question, you can just tell them either after the meeting or during. So sometimes as a team member, we want to engage one-on-one after. We could say something like, "Hey, I appreciate you bringing up that question because I didn't realize that, and then you could say something about the response on that question. I didn't realize X when I learned that, so that gave me a lot better insight. So thank you for that." And then if it's somebody who has a contrary opinion, do the same thing. "Hey, I appreciate you bringing up these contrary opinions, these alternate opinions to what we're doing. And I really like the way that you use data to inform this," or you pick something that the person actually used to create their argument. So those are two simple ways as a leader or a team member that you can begin creating this rewarded vulnerability. So we have looked, identified, validated, and now let's take a look at engage. How do we engage? What does that actually mean? It's probably very self-explanatory for many of us, and that is perfectly fine. But we've all probably been in meetings where we've said something or somebody else has said something and it just got walked right over and not even mentioned. Right. So that was an opportunity where we missed engagement because we never want anybody to put something out there and then it just fall in silence. Right. I've probably been guilty of doing that from time to time. And I know that that has been done to me. And that's always sent a message that it's not okay to put things out there because they were ignored. And when something's ignored, we fill in the blanks generally with bad stuff. So it's important to engage. And that is as simple as if somebody says good morning, saying good morning back and just being authentic, because human interaction is a form of vulnerability and we want to role model what that is. So if we're 100% online, 100% virtual, it's simple to do as well. You can do hop on, hop off meetings where you're just chatting with people, seeing what you can do to support them, checking in to see how they are doing. So be authentic and remember to look, identify, validate, engage. This video is brought to you by the Digital Learning Solutions team at Los Angeles Pacific University and the Master of Science in Instructional Design and Technology program, where you can move through the program at your pace, finish in 8, 12, 16, or 20 months. It depends on your availability. And we start new classes the first of every month. So if you are interested in becoming an instructional designer, this is a hands-on competency-based program where you earn micro credentials throughout, and it culminates with a Master of Science in Instructional Design and Technology. So it's affordable and it is an amazing hands-on program. So we'd love to hear from you and love to see you in the program.